Hello and welcome to Books Report Live. Normally is the preseason stuff that we've been doing, but the preseason is pretty much done, and we are just talking about cuts, Buccaneer news, rumors, things that are happening. If you're watching the show, like, comment, subscribe, and share. It's much appreciated. And unsubscribe and resubscribe, unlike and relike, because that helps us every single day. So I will have Ray Kennedy joining me in a bit. That'll be cool to catch bases with him. I know he does a lovely little show called Cup of Ray that he does sometimes early in the morning for him, afternoon for me. And then we've got a great comedian coming in called Rodney, who's going to be doing some stuff for us, and we're going to have a little chat with him about some Buccaneer football. So we'll start off with the news that's been going on. The Buccaneers have trimmed down their roster to the 53. This 53 that's going to come up is probably not what's going to be on week one. We know this. It's been alluded to in the presses from Byron Leftwich that these aren't exactly solid. And we know that there's going to be a lot of chopping and changing as time goes. But at the moment, your starting offense on the Buccaneers is number 13, Mike Evans, 14, Chris Godwin, who probably might get shuffled out into number 85, Julio Jones, dependent on what's going to happen with him and where he is with his injury status at the moment. And then your slot receiver will be number 17, Russell Gage, number 76, Donovan Smith, number 67, Luke Gadeke, number 70, Robert Hainsey, number 69, Shaq Mason, number 78, Tristan Wirfs, and then we got 84, Cameron Brate, number 12, Tom Brady, and number 7, Leonard Fournette. They will be your offensive starters that we probably will know. The only one that would really change would be Chris Godwin. And then he'd probably be in favor of Julio Jones going there, or whoever's better developed, who they feel is better developed, ready to take that second outside receiver position. And then on your defensive side, you got number 92, William Goulston, returning at end. Vita Vea, number 50, as your nose tackle. You've got Akeem Hicks as your other end at 96. Number 9, Joe Tryainka. I always struggle to get that one out. It's a bit of a mouthful. And then you've got Devin White, number 45, Get Live 45. You've got number 54 in Lethal Dosage, Lavonte David. You've got Shaq Barrett at number 58. You've got Colton Davis, 24. You've got Mike Edwards at number 32 as one of your safeties. And then Antoine Whitfield Jr. is 31. And then finally finishing off with Sean Murphy Bunting, number 23, as your other corners. How's it going, man? How are you?
Good, Coach. How are you? I just popped in here on you. I was just watching.
That's right. No worries.
I'll tell you what. Oh, there you go. So yeah, I mean, no big surprises. Obviously one of the big surprises was Tyler Johnson. I mean, you're watching his Golden Gopher over the last couple of years. He was played in every game last season. And then he had the big holding call there in the championship game in Green Bay. That was kind of one, but if there's going to be a receiver or a position on this Buccaneers team that you're going to go, it would obviously be one of that would be such depth that the Buccaneers have at that wide receiver position. Was there anything else what else popped up with you, Coach, that you were like, wow?
I think when you look at this wide receiver position, and I've seen like the knee-jerk reactions to him leaving, you've got to look at it from like with the Devin Tompkins and some of those guys were unlucky not to get in. They did have great preseasons, but who was throwing to them? It was Kyle Trask. Was that Tom Brady? No. Tom Brady has as much say to who's on this roster than anyone else, especially at that wide receiver position. And it clearly shows that they went with experience over rookies that they wanted to develop. They are looking to hit the season hard. And both Scotty Miller and Jalen Darden have had high praise from Tom Brady in the past. I believe that Jalen Darden was somebody that Tom Brady wanted the Buccaneers to draft. He went, that guy. Yeah. If I remember reading stories about Jalen Darden, Darden had looked good in camp. And I think sometimes we look at preseason games as out because that's what we get to see. That's what me and you get to see. We see the preseason games and we go, okay, this guy's going off. This Devin Tompkins kid is great. but we don't know what he's doing in practice week in, week out compared to the Rashard Perrimans, the Cyril Graysons, and the Jalen Dardens of the world. Is it shocking? A little bit, yeah, because of you would have thought somebody with that much stature that he could get in there, but it didn't matter who you change those last two spots to anybody else, you're going to upset somebody. There was no way that Buccaneers has a team set where everyone goes, that is 100%, because there are Tyler Johnson fans out there. There are Scotty Miller fans out there. So you can't please everyone. And when you have this depth or this, a lot of people have said is one of the most thickest wide receiver position groupings we've ever had, let alone in the NFL, you're going to have that. It's the ultimate head scratcher.
What I like about it, Coach, is that – oh, no, sorry. I was going to say that we didn't – Tyler Johnson was, to me, he was Chris Godwin, 2.1. I don't mean to put him down. I'm just saying Chris Godwin's a phenomenal receiver. And the Buccaneers get him not only with the franchise, but then they get the extension on him. And Godwin he's just Tyler Johnson on steroids, obviously better across the middle, great blocker, the type of a gritty type of, do the dirty stuff receiver, and also bury the lead, a phenomenal wide receiver. And I also am excited about the fact that you keep these young guys. And these young guys are going to get a chance to play a year with Tom Brady. They're going to get a chance to be led by one of the greatest of all time, who's going to teach them, ironically enough, as a quarterback, is going to teach them how to be a better wide receivers. And that goes and pays dividends down the road for your Buccaneers as we continue to reload for 2023 and 24 and 25, regardless of who's under center or what have you,
So just to put this, talk to me on who you would have kept. Who would have been your final two in that? Because everyone's got their different. I like to see people's combination on that. Who would have been your two?
Well, here's the thing: is that we talk about Scotty Miller. You're talking about wide receiver position, right?
Yes.
And I like Scotty Miller. I've always liked Scotty. I like the story. I like the kid. I like the hustle. We talk about him being a special teams contributor. I started really toward the end there. I was buying into the Tyler Johnson. I like his size. I like his length. I like his speed. And obviously there's the protagonist in me that says, well, there must have been something going on. There must have been, maybe there wasn't the dedication, or it might have just came down to a skill set position, like you said. And Tom said, get the kid from North Texas and Jalen Darden, get the, this kid in here. I'm not saying I would have gotten rid of anybody, because you're right. The sample size on these young receivers, because they were playing with Kyle Trask and with the third and fourth string offensive line and playing against some sloppy defenses, the sample size was small, but I didn't see enough that would make me say, I keep that guy over Scotty Miller, or I keep that guy over Tyler Johnson. So, like you said, it was preseason.
And it's always tight in that position. I mean, I have Rashard Perriman out because I just hadn't seen him do anything in preseason, but then I'm not watching him in every single practice. So that's probably where that one comes down. And then we look at what has BP done for Tom Brady. Wow, if I remember correctly, we won a game with him because of him. Have any of these other guys won a game for Tom Brady yet? So Tom Brady has that trust. He has that deep ball trust with him. And if people remember, the Rashard Perriman, going into the last two games before the playoffs, when Chris Godwin was done, and we had the outburst from Antonio, we had the outburst from Antonio Brown. What position? Where was he? Oh, he was starting.
He was. You're right. I mean, I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, I remember it clear as day. But he stepped right in and balled out, and that's what you get from the kid from University of Central Florida, the former first-round pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he bounced around. He goes and signs that free agent contract after a couple of successful years here in Tampa Bay with the Jets, and then we end up getting him back again last year. Let me ask you this, Coach, because I'll just jump, because I think we're going to have somebody coming in here in a little while. We're going to have Rodney Norman.
Rodney's coming in.
Funny guy. I just love that guy.
Yeah, really funny.
If Gio Bernard, probably the best mustache in the league, right behind Cam Brate now, who's got the facial foliage that's just driving all the girls crazy. But Gio Bernard has spent more time in the training room than he has the locker room, it seems, in the last 2 years. And I thought that they get Rashid White in White. They get that receiving running back out of the backfield that can be that safety valve. But of course, the rookie from Arizona State, he's a rookie, so maybe Tom doesn't have that trust yet. He'll develop, but I just hope we're planning on seeing. I get the Ryan Jensen. You wait till the season. You wait till they get the final 53, and you slide him down because you can get him back. I don't know if he makes the impact that Vita Vea made in 2020 coming back there at the very end of the season, and what a huge thing that
Mm-hmm.
was. But you get a healthy Ryan Jensen with that attitude down the, and you need that. You get that depth as you're looking for that playoffs and getting into playoffs into the 2022 playoffs. But I just want to see more of Gio Bernard because he was going to be the guy receiving out of the backfield. He's the reason why you don't have a Sony Michel. He's the reason why we didn't have to worry about trying to go after these other running backs because he was our receiver. So hopefully there's a plan there, and it's not just because he's a veteran and Tom wanted to keep another veteran around.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at Sony Michel, he has been picked up. He's been picked up by the Chargers.
Who's that?
Cut. Sony Michel. So he was cut by the Dolphins, picked up, and he's been picked up by the Chargers already.
Right, and the guy's he's a player. I mean, he did well in New England. He's pretty strong wherever he goes. He's a solid running back. Now, of course, he's a veteran. He's seen a lot. Man, I'll tell you what, Coach. If we could just swatch around and we can just go those Chargers. You're talking about Herbert, the team, Staley, the coach, and they get in Khalil Mack, and you got Bosa, and you got. I mean, there's in the AFC West is such a packed division, but I like the Chargers to win the AFC West. I'm just if we're throwing predictions out, which you didn't ask me, but
no, I'll take a prediction. I think that's a really tough one to call. It's a bit like the AFC North as well. Those two are the real head scratchers because you know who's coming out. You know who's coming out of the AFC East, and you know who's coming out of the AFC. AFC South's a bit more of a harder one to pick because it's a two-headed battle on that one. But the others are pretty much set. And then you could argue realistically that you got your four. Then you could take another person from the AFC West, another person from the AFC North, and then it could be a final battle from one of those other AFC North or AFC West teams that gets that final playoff spot in the seventh seed.
Let me ask you this, Coach, because I've called it all along. I get that Matt Rule's on the hottest seat right now, and of all 32 teams, that seat under Coach Matt Rule of the Carolina Panthers is the hottest one. And of course, Baker wins the starting. You like Baker's balling out skills. Carolina's been building. They get a couple of defensive pieces last year. They get the big left tackle in first round this year. And of course, it all depends on Christian McCaffrey being healthy. But I see, even though the first game of the year there is in Carolina, it's the revenge game, Cleveland versus Carolina. Of course, Baker already talked about how he's going to decimate those Browns. I see the Browns winning this running away, regardless of who's under center, because of that defense, because of Myles Garrett, because of that running game and that offensive line. Is that how you see it, or do you think Carolina's got a fighting chance in that one?
I mean, Carolina's got a good defense. Their defense is solid, and they've got a good run game when it gets going. So I think they'll get problems. It all depends. I mean, it depends the quarterback position of the Browns. If that quarterback can stay focused and get that role done, then I mean they have a very good chance. So I think with them with no quarterback, I think I might have to. I think it's a real tough one to call, but I might actually have to go with Carolina. Only because you've got a quarterback who's got something to prove, and if we know one thing about this kid. And I say kid, he's not massively far off my age. I'm 37, so he's not massively far from me, but he's still technically a kid to me. We know that he can have moments. I believe my son's right behind me.
There he is. Oh, were we too loud? Sorry about that.
Nah, he's all right. He was awake when we got in, so he's all good. He's all good. No, not yet. So he's got next week.
Very good.
All right, can you go to bed for me? All right, go to bed for me, son. I believe we've got our next guest coming in. Rodney.
Mr. Rodney Norman, this guy. Hey, Rodney, how are you tonight, my friend?
Hello. How you guys doing?
Not too bad, man. How's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We got you nice, crystal clear.
All right. I'm in a hotel room in Mobile, Alabama, so my internet's not all that great.
So you touring right now?
Yeah, I'm currently on my way to Florida for some one of these social media influencer conferences.
Okay.
They tell me I'm supposed to go that stuff now.
Rodney, can I ask you a question? And this comes with all due respect. And this comes from a place of respect. Do you ever get people coming up to you and going, Jerry Garcia? Ever? Because you have that look, my friend. I just mean because you're famous. I mean, because you also have that presence, that stage presence, but also you happen to look a little bit like him, not nowhere near as old, same age as him, but you do look a little bit like Jerry.
I've got people that said that I do look like Jerry Garcia, but nobody's mistaken me for him.
You don't got that money yet, though, either, do we? So how are you tonight, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I got recognized at Office Depot today, so that was exciting.
Excellent. Well, let me ask you this. You said you're working your way toward Florida. Where in Florida are you going to be? Is a specific area, or are you just going to tour throughout the state?
I'm going to be in Orlando for the weekend, and then I'm coming back in October to do a show at Niceville. Well, I'm hosting a music festival.
Nice.
In Niceville, Florida.
Nice.
Halloween
nice.
weekend.
Nice.
So that'll be exciting.
I keep saying nice. You said Niceville. You dropped it. Now I got it in my head. Go ahead, Coach.
So talk on where are you in, like how long is your leg of your tour at the moment that you're doing then?
Oh, I'm kind of on tour constantly. I'm just I haven't got a tour so much as just people just want me to come somewhere and they're willing to pay me. I go do it. So there's no rhyme or reason to any of it. There's nobody putting actual effort into making a system that's logical or makes any sense of any kind. And so I'm just sort of constantly crisscrossing the country, basically losing money every time I do a gig because it costs me too much to get there. So it's a whole system I have going.
So you do it for love?
I do it for the attention.
Why not? We all do it for the applause. Fantastic. So what kind of comedy do you
Rodney,
do?
What tickles you today?
I've been doing stand-up since 1998, and I just joke about my wife, my kids, life in general, our brains, God, the universe, everything. We just get up there and have a goofy, good old time.
Do you have like a formula in place?
Rodney,
like
when it comes to God.
What's that?
No, I said when it comes to God, do you think she has a sense of humor?
I can't hear you guys.
I think it's me. I'm gonna hold on. I'll be right back in here. Coach, did you hear me there?
Yeah, I got you. Ronnie, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome, man.
Can you hear me?
Talk on. He's gone, but no worries, Rodney. We'll come back round. So, do you have like I wouldn't say like a script, but like a loose plan of what you're going to say, of jokes that you said before, or material that you've worked on before, or is it all just locked in the mind and you just bring it out?
Well, it's a combination of stuff that some jokes I've been doing for a while, some stuff I just came up with today, the day I'm doing the show. Trying to put in new stuff all the time. And then, of course, I play off the audience a little bit and have some fun. So it's just sort of, I don't really go in with a plan. I just kind of get up there and start talking and see what happens.
So very improv almost.
What's that?
Very improv almost.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Do you joke much about football?
I have in the past. I'm a big a lifelong Saints fan.
Oh dear, unlucky.
So I got into football when I was a kid. I loved it. It's my favorite sport.
Mm-hmm.
But now when I watch, when you're younger and you're watching it, you're always looking like, hey, one day I'll do that. And now, I think my opportunity to play in the NFL has probably passed me. And so it's hard to stay excited about it anymore because it's like
the dream's been pulled away from you.
Yeah. If I show up to a game, there's no chance they're just going to pull me in and suit me up, And
Absolutely.
once you have that realization that that the opportunity is passed by, you start doing other stuff like getting excited about gardening.
Yeah, that's the adult. That's the adult that comes out in you, and you start getting excited about the wallpapering and the mundane stuff, and you're like, oh, yeah, and then going to a restaurant's really exciting because you haven't done it in a while.
Yes.
I know that feeling. Yeah, me and my wife, our children haven't spent a day away from us, so because no one wants them overnight, so we have to kind of fit everything in like a 4 hour thing and try and make it back. So we rarely go out and rarely do anything. So everything's kind of done with the children mostly. It can be a bit tough at times, but it's what it is. So talk to me. Have you ever done Saints jokes?
What's that?
Have you ever done Saints jokes?
Saints jokes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I used to do jokes about how I enjoyed being a Saints fan because I enjoyed frustration, and then we won the Super Bowl. But now we've had such a bad run. I can start doing the jokes about being a Saints fan is how you prepare yourself for the afterlife.
I like that. But hey, we as a Bucs fan, we were in the afterlife and we got resurrected. So we're relevant now. We haven't been for a long time. So it's great to have that kind of turnaround. And you guys had the same thing, didn't you? You had Drew Brees come to you, and he kind of started really kind of revitalizing that Saints team. And of course, you had the head coach as well. That was a bit of a legend too. And you guys won a few postseason runs, got a Super Bowl out of it, and had some fun.
Yeah, I was. When they won the Super Bowl, I almost had an out of body experience. I was like, this is unreal. Because I started watching the Saints when I was a kid. I started rooting for them because they were the worst team in the NFL. And I've always been kind of an underdog sort of person. So I thought, that's it. I'm going to root for the Saints because they're so horrible.
And then they got good, and you're like, what am I doing now?
Then when they find success, they kind of have an identity crisis. It's like, oh, no.
It's not what you're supposed to be, right? But sometimes,
Am I going to start rooting for the Detroit Lions now? That's the Jets. Am I going to become a Jets fan? I don't know what to do with myself.
I mean, if you go Lions, they haven't been relevant for a very, 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 very long time. So you're probably good for another 50 years.
Yeah.
You get 50 years out of that, for sure. Well, everyone tries to dig themselves out of the basement, but there's just some teams that just don't know how. And it can take a big thing to change that. Whether it's a head coach, a philosophy, or a superstar quarterback, which tends to do the trick.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Olson says that the Lions are on the rise. They could well be. I never say never. I just don't. I don't know. I don't know when it comes to the Lions. I think there's a lot more that needs to happen for them to have a meaningful success again. And they're in a tough.
I think the Lions. I think they're going to have a decent season, but then again, a decent season for the Lions is if they can get 2 wins.
At the moment, that's probably what it looks like. I mean, I see them probably scraping into the 8 and 9 column now that it's not 8 and 8 anymore. But yeah, all it takes is, I mean, they had this. There's a stat up about them that they'd lost by only like a few points in quite a lot of games. But the real fact of the matter is, you still lost. You know that. Yeah. Whether you lose by 3 points or you lose by 1 point, you still lost. It doesn't matter. Those are the kind of small victories that you take when you when you support a team. And we've been through it with the Bucs. You think, oh wow, we just played this really, really, really good team who are like playoff bound, has won a Super Bowl recently, and we only lost by 3 points. Because that's your mentality now.
Yeah, that's the same. I've been a Utah Jazz fan my whole life too, and that's we came so close, and then Jordan pushed off and cheated, and we just had the same ever since.
So where are you from, Rodney?
Well, I grew up in Utah, but I currently live in Connecticut.
Okay. Any reason for that, or just that's where you ended up?
Well, as a comedian, you either go to New York or LA, and I didn't want to live in New York City, so Connecticut was a nice trade off because it's right between Boston and New York, and I could go into both. I started going into New York, but after a while, it was just like, never mind. That's a frustrating scene to be involved in. It's a lot of you come away you either hit it big or you just become very very bitter.
Yeah.
And very very few actually make it big. So it's just a whole lot of very bitter people trying to hang out with each other, convincing them they're all geniuses, and it's a weird thing. But then again, that's every comedy scene you go to. Every single comedy enclave anywhere. Very few of them are actually going to make it, and the rest of them just sit around and complain about how they were better than the other guy that made it, and it's a terrible system that we have.
It's the same with musicians, I suppose you could say as well.
What's that?
Musicians, they're probably the very similar
Yeah,
mindset.
yeah, I think just entertainment in general. We're really good friends with each other, but at the same time, we loathe and despise each other.
Very honest, I like it. So, have you been following the NFL recently, as in the case of the preseason or anything like that, or do you just watch a couple of games?
Somewhat. I kind of don't get too worried until about the first or second game when they finally figured out who's actually on the team, and you've had a chance to look at it. Good preseason. You can never make decisions about anybody during the preseason because none of the people involved are really taking it all that seriously. It's more just a money grab for the.
Yeah, it's just trying to work out who you're going to keep and who you're not going to keep. But it's tough. There's not enough teams and a lot more players, so that's the problem.
Yeah,
not a lot of too many players. Crazy, really, if you think about it. But they're trying to do all these feeder leagues or these smaller leagues and what have you. Maybe they can catch on there, and you still can stay a professional football player even if you're not earning millions and millions of dollars. You can still do, if you truly love it, you can continue to do that, and I think that's a good thing in my opinion. So I quite like it.
Yeah, I'm hoping they get the XFL back up. I like the USFL looked good this year. I thought they put up some pretty good football. I do think they need to focus on the smaller markets though. It's kind of frustrating that they. I mean, I understand it's a numbers game, so you want to put the teams where you've already got a following of football, but
football's everywhere though in America, really, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, that's why I think if they went into smaller markets, the Football Association, remember that one?
Yep. I think the American Alliance of Football or something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Yes, I still have my Salt Lake Stallions T-shirt.
Oh wow!
I thought they had a good idea, but I don't know. They kind of spread themselves too thin, too fast. I think was the problem.
Ran out of money, didn't they? They couldn't pay the players in the end.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I think you've got to be a bit more. You need to think a bit more about the viability of your business if you're going to try and run a league, and how you're going to do that, and people got to make their money. It's difficult. I mean, it's difficult because you've got to get people to the stadiums, and I think the first season is always the toughest because the first season is where people are going, do I dip my toe into this world and get involved in it, or do I just leave it and wait for the season to start? Because these are all spring leagues, they all start straight after the Super Bowl pretty much, and you just like, okay, is it you want to? I get put it in that kind of time, in that time frame, because you can't compete with the NFL. You're never going to compete with the NFL. And you're probably not going to compete with college football. You're never going to compete with college football either. So you have to do it in the spring.
Yeah.
Because you're the only show that's showing, but you have competition with other sports. Then you've got basketball, you've got baseball starting at some point in that time as well, and the hockey season's going as well. So it's very difficult to kind of know what's going on there. But it's something they've got to figure out.
I do think they could compete in the fall if they don't try to actually compete with the NFL. And that is by going into markets that the NFL's not in. I mean, if you're trying to play games in New York and LA and Atlanta where the NFL's already there, you got problems. But if you start going into like, Birmingham, St. Louis, places, that have had teams that would still support something. St. Louis, the Rams were still doing well. I mean, it just basically came down to who was going to give them a bigger stadium.
And the money, right? The money stank. They went on a money grab for that, move out to LA. And I mean, the NFL, look what they got. They got the SoFi Stadium. The Chargers and the Rams both play there. The centerpiece, the showpiece for the NFL. There was no way the Rams weren't going to go there, right, guys?
I don't think you could turn it down. I mean, it did feel like it was a bit of a kick in the teeth for NFL fans in the city. They're always, and it's always going to feel like that for any team that does end up considering moving. You are basically saying to your local fan base, "You're not good enough. I want to go here." That's why it always hurts. And that's why it's always I would say, a very hard thing to see, because if the Buccaneers turn for us, said, "Oh, we're going to move," it doesn't affect me as much. But you live in Tampa, don't you, Ray?
Yeah, I mean, go back to '95 when Hugh Culverhouse passes and the family held the trust and the team was for sale. And there were like several out-of-town bidders lining up to try to take this team. And the last game of the year, that '95 year, was against the Green Bay Packers. And I don't know if you remember this, Rodney and Coach, but I went to that home game. I was been a season ticket holder since '76, and I went to that home game, and that was going to probably be the last game I'd ever see the Bucs play here in Tampa. Became that close. Yeah, and then the Glaziers step up by the team, and over the last 27 years, they've proven out now, I think, to be among the best, if not the best, owners in the National Football League. We're not going to talk about soccer. I'm kidding. See, hey Rodney, I made a joke. So, what did we talk about while I was gone? What were we talking about? The USFL and the XFL?
Yeah, we've been talking about how there needs to be a bit more football because there isn't enough. With preseason, we see a lot of players, but it's just kind of like a dress rehearsal for the main. This is like a starter, so to speak, and it's just a shame that there's so many players that do actually have talent that don't really get a chance. Because what me and you would call, when people saying, "Oh, they're a bum" or "they're a bust" or what have you, they're probably extremely talented. They're just not NFL talented. And then when you look at for example, like soccer or rugby in the UK, you have the Premiership and then you have the Championship and then you have the next division and the next division, the next division. They don't feed each other, but there's relegation, and that would never work because you've got billionaire franchises with a millionaire franchise trying to start up and try and get in. That's just not going to happen. But what you can have is create a feeder league and work it that way instead.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised the NFL doesn't try and give its blessing to something, because then it makes it a little bit easier and they profit off the spring league. I've always been surprised why they didn't try to do that, because there is talent available.
Well, they tried the World League and
NFL Europe, I believe they did.
Which became the NFL Europe. They tried to do it there. They were trying to expand into new markets, but I don't know. It's kind of weird because it's like they do a really good job at first, and then they just completely kind of ignore it. It's like, oh, here's our shiny new thing, and then they just kind of let it die on the vine. It's kind of bizarre how they pulled that one off.
Well, the incredible thing is the Buccaneers playing against the Seahawks in Week 10, their first game in regular season game in Munich, Germany. That thing sold out in minutes, and you've got several regular season games now playing there in London. And the thing is, Well, and the USFL is going to be a feeder league, if you will, for game officials and officiating and trying new things. And of course, the XFL has already been, the NFL's kind of already started to indicate that that'll be a tap as far as for development of players, like almost a farm system. And you guys, I don't know, Norman, maybe you are, or maybe you are, coach, but I'm not a gambling man. But the thing that ties all of this together is the worldwide. How is legalized gambling? It's obviously as apparent or around over there in England, coach, as it is all over the United
Oh, it's
States
huge.
now here?
It's absolutely huge. Betting on football or soccer is huge. Like there's adverts for it everywhere. Like, everywhere you walk, there's advertising for it, and it's been like that for the last 10 years. And it's always been a big thing. Betting on soccer and sports in this country, for sure.
Are you are you a gambling man, coach, or
I,
Norman, or do you
I
like to lay a couple of
only
dollars?
No, I'm not a gambling man. Never got into it. Just because of just knowing my personal record of picking teams, I'm like, yeah. If I were to ever gamble, I would actually just vote on the team that I wanted to lose, and I would probably do pretty well.
pick the opposite
Oh,
team. I like it.
I
I'd
am
bet on the Super Bowl.
horrible.
I would
I
bet on
always
the
go
Super
with
Bowl.
I always go with the pretty uniforms. I always go for the team with the pretty uniforms. That's what my sister always did. She always picked the team with the pretty uniforms. But yeah, I think Coach or Norman, you're definitely more. I can tell already. You're a spiritual type of person. You know, like you said, karma. Universe. Namaste. I don't say namaste, but that in gambling doesn't seem. It's as opposed to putting money down and having a vested interest on one side. You're just to let it flow and enjoy the game for what it is on both sides. But did you already tell us what is your favorite NFL team?
What was that last part?
What is your favorite NFL team?
My When I was younger, right off the bat, my favorite team was the New Orleans Saints, and because they.
All right, he's out of here. I'm just kidding. I'll bring him back in, Norman. I'm just kidding. But go ahead, continue.
But when I was a kid, my favorite player was Earl Campbell, and so I was
Oh,
also a huge
yes.
Houston Oilers fan.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
so that's who I. So the Houston Oilers is who I rooted for to win, and the Saints was the team I rooted for to someday win.
wow. And
And
coach, the thing that's ironic there is the Houston Oilers moved to Tennessee, become the Tennessee Titans. And
Mhm.
and Norman talks about his favorite play being Earl Campbell. And I would pose more of a speedy outside receiver, but that's almost what reminds me of the running back now, Derrick Henry with the Titans
Mhm.
now in Tennessee reminds you of a Earl Campbell, maybe with a little more speed. No,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's ridiculously
he's
talented
a
at what that guy can
beast.
do. The fact that he can make an all pro safety, turn him around and use him as a human shield is just mind boggling. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever see things like that again. It was kind of hard, but I think it was the 2019 season, maybe the 2020 season, where he almost hit the 2000 mark, which is
Yes.
for the modern day era, where we're in a pass happy league. It's kind of cool to see like some of the old school still in there, and he's old school. What you can see by his running style. Same with say Leonard Fournette is a very old school running guy. He likes
Ooh.
there's running backs that like contact, and there's running backs that run away from contact, and both those guys kind of feast. They're like, come on, let's go. We want a piece.
Well, let me ask you this, Norman. I'd be remiss. I got to ask you, my friend, because it's been a goal of mine my entire life, a goal that I'm never going to achieve. But I wanted to be a stand-up comedian my entire life. I think I could get out on a stage, but it's always got to be that first line or that first joke. And without putting you on the spot, you got one for me? You got a little joke for me here tonight on a little Wednesday night, little special edition here with Coach Slick and on here on Bucs Report?
um, well, I don't know if it's a joke or not, but I was driving. I was actually almost in a car accident today.
Oh,
Yeah, it would have been a pretty serious car accident too. But fortunately, at the last second, I managed to change my mind.
change your mind. Oh, that reminds me of what happened today. No, I was going to go there. It was so politically incorrect, but let me ask you this, Coach. I'm gonna go back to you. Do you have one? Let me hear a dad joke because you're a dad. I think
I got one. I always got one that I always do on my daughter, and it's a two-part, and I'm just trying. I always say to my daughter, I say, Iris, why did the chicken cross the road? She goes, I don't know. To get to the stupid person's house, and she just look at me blank, and I go, knock knock, and she'll go, who's there? The chicken. And she just looked at me like, I don't get it, Daddy. And I'm like, wow, but I get it.
Oh, it's funny because my wife said to me the other day, she's starting on my wife. She gets hot. They get flashes, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
she's there yet, but she's getting there. But she said, I'm getting really hot. And she said, every time I get real hot, I want you to blow on me. And I said, blow what? She said, every time I get hot, I need you to blow on me. And I turned to her. I said, honey, I got to tell you, I'm not a fan. Wasn't even good. Sorry.
It'll do.
Thanks.
Oh, dear. Well, I think I've got one, but it's a bit more ruder. So can we do blue comedy?
Oh heck yeah!
It's not vulgar.
Norman's a special guest here, but he's also the professional.
Okay.
Do
So
your
man
runs
into a bank, sperm bank, balaclava on, gun out, and says, "Empty the safe." And the woman goes, "I'm sorry, we're not that kind of bank." He's like, "Empty and safe, or you're gonna die." And she just goes, "Whoa, look, we're really not that kind of bank. If you question me one more time, I'm gonna pump you full of lead." And she's fine. She opens the case up. She says, "See, it's sperm." He said, "Drink one." And she goes, "You what? Drink one." And she's like, "If you don't drink one, I'll kill you." So she grabs the bottle, pulls her face, and another. "Are you crazy?" And he's like, "Do it or you'll die." And one more, and I'll leave you alone. She pulls it out, winces, and he goes, "See, darling, I told you it didn't taste that bad."
Oh God! Oh God! Well, it takes me back to the one you told your daughter with the chicken crossing the street. You know why the pervert crossed the street, don't you?
Nope.
Because he was stuck to the chicken. Go ahead, Norman. You got to give us one. You don't have to get blue, but you got to have one in reserve for me. What do you got?
You know what the biggest problem with polygamy is?
No.
Having to make love to the same 27 women for the rest of your life.
Oh man, we got off the subject here. How do we get it back? Oh, let me get another one here. Oh, I have no idea.
Jeff Olson's got one for you. What do you do with the sad astronaut?
Oh.
You give him a little space.
Oh God, that's good. Oh, that's good. Reading ahead in comments. Wait a minute. Ben Cornett's got one right here. Wait, before we go on to space, what's green? Oh God, it's getting real blue. I've heard about these conversations, coaches. We're going to the Deshaun Watson area, aren't we?
Oh, we'll try not to get there. We're not trying not to stay there. And we've also got a punter that's just been released for something just as bad. So,
yeah, I think it continues to amaze me that the NFL, well, because we're fans of the NFL, so we're going to put up with a lot. But we're going to let, Rich Dalrymple and the Cowboys and the cheerleaders in the locker room and Daniel Snyder and the cheerleaders and the sponsors and, even other situations. And then we're going to put a player like Calvin Ridley on a full year suspension when he's using one of their NFL approved gaming apps to lay a couple of crazy parlays when he's away from the team. I get it. It doesn't strike me like shoeless Joe Jackson in the 1919 Black Sox, but the NFL just seems to pick and choose where they'll apply their punishment for different things and yet never put the light back on themselves. And we as fans, we just accept it because you know what? Next Thursday night, a week from tomorrow night, Rams against we got game 1 and it's the first week and all is forgiven. It's just, it amazes me.
It is shocking. And the shocking thing about the Calvin Ridley thing is he bet on his own team to win. Like, he's not going to know. If he knew they were going to lose and he's betting on his team to lose, then you could say, okay, this guy might know something. When we talked about what happened with Brian Flores claiming that he'd been paid to lose games, and other coaches had said the same thing, that they were maybe not paid, but they were told to lose games. And you looked at how Atlanta was playing at that point in time, and they were losing games.
Mm-hmm.
If he was betting for the team to lose, there is an argument for it, and you.
I think a simple solution to this is you make every person in the NFL put bets in on their own team to win, and then you probably see them put up a little bit more of an effort.
Oh, I think also
You
we
know,
need to.
if their entire paycheck is dependent on winning the game, you know, you're going to see a different attitude coming out on that field. That's all I'm saying. It's going to make it a
Well,
little more interesting.
I
It's
think
like
that
we win, I become a millionaire. If not, I might be losing my house.
true. Although,
So
the thing about it is,
we should encourage them all to gamble.
I think we just use a little bit of common sense, and that is it's a situation by situation basis. That is, Calvin Ridley was away from the team down in Miami. He placed a bunch of crazy. It was like a six game parlay, and
Mhm.
one of the ones was the Falcons to win was one of them. Hadn't been inside the facility for over a month because he was spending that time away from the game. Some would theorize that he was going through some mental health, and he admitted at the time he was going through some issues. Um, and in that case, like you said, Coach, he wasn't betting for him to lose. He had no inside information. He's away from the facility, but they're going to suspend him for an entire year. But then Deshaun Watson can go and get 46, massage charges against him, and the judge, Sue L. Robinson, in the case, can actually categorize it as predatory behavior. And he ends
Mhm.
up getting what? The 11 games. He gets back, costs him $5 million, and they're going to hit the rubber, hit the road there in week 12, and all is forgiven. But at the same time, nobody ever, and John Gruden comes out yesterday and says, I would like to coach in the NFL again. And I hope Coach gets the chance to do that. And let me tell you why. I don't forgive him for those emails. I don't forgive him for the things he said. I know there were a lot of people saying a lot of things that they shouldn't have said, and their feet should be held to the fire on the situations. But in this case, 5,000 of 250,000 emails, was it? 5,000 get released, enough to get him fired, gets everybody looking away from the Washington
Mhm.
Redskins, gets him fired, and yet still the other 60,000 emails, nobody still sees those because the NFL is not going to let those see the light of day. Again, the NFL picks and chooses where they'll apply their justice, and I think that's a double face.
Absolutely. And I think with the John Gruden thing, there are things that people say and do that could be considered racist or homophobic, but they might not have that thought process in them. So what I mean by someone could use the that vulgar word that they use to call a black person, or that vulgar word to refer to as a homosexual person. That doesn't mean they hate on that race or that person because of what they are. They're just using the wrong language. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean at their core they're inherently racist or inherently homophobic. Which I mean, I don't know what Carl Nassib has came out and said anything about John Gruden himself, or he's just kept everything kind of close to his chest. Because I would imagine reading those kind of comments of what he said about other people and using that kind of language would have upset him.
True.
But
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
I think when people use those kind of words, they don't mean it to that they hate on that race or that group of people. They just use it and don't realize the damage it can do. Because we just that doesn't mean I'm condoning it. It's like when you have the aunt or the uncle from decades ago and has a completely different view process than the rest of us, and they will use words like I've got an aunt that my great aunt would use some absolute vulgar language,
Hmm.
but she was one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and she wouldn't say boo to a goose, but she used really racist language, and that was just who she was. And you don't condone it because that's not right, but they come from a completely different era where they have to learn and they don't understand. And luckily for us, we're always in a learning process. And I think if you dug up most people's history off their Twitter or their Facebook account, you could find something where they've said something. And this is why when we find out like a quarterback they've checked his email, not his emails, they've checked his Twitter, and he said this X, Y, and Z. And yeah, it's bad, but it was like that person's growing up as they go, and most of us learn that we learn our wrongs from right. Some of us learn
Right.
quicker than others, and
Well,
that's all I'm alluding to.
well, no, but and I'm thinking, I think the same thing here. I just, instead of taking it as opportunity, if you want to release 5,000 emails and put the light on one person, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that John he said some really stupid things. I
Mm-hmm.
think that one of the biggest mistakes he makes, and one of the biggest mistakes people in life generally make, isn't so much if you even participate in that that terrible or those whatever. It's that if you don't tell someone that you don't agree with it, because until we get to a point where we tell someone I'm not okay with that, didn't think that joke was that funny, I'm uncomfortable with the way you referenced. But in this case, we could have taken 600 or whatever it was, coach, 650,000, I think it was, emails, and we could have shown the entire spectrum, and we could have made this a big learning experience to continue to make the NFL a more opportunistic and open league, to whether it be for by your sex or by your race or by your religion. Instead of taking it, the NFL turned it inside, made it to 5,000 emails to get Gruden fired because they were busy taking their taking off the eyes off the prize, which was really the 10-year and the going back 10 years and the sexual harassment claims those cheerleaders made against Daniel Snyder and those guys. But if you don't mind, I'm going to throw this on the Ben Cornett, again, talking again about the Calvin Ridley versus Deshaun Watson. Ben says, Ray, it comes down to evidence. Ridley's suspension, they had evidence of him gambling. Watson's situation, there was no physical evidence. It's all about the evidence. And I agree, Ben, that's why the court of law did not have any the courts in Texas there did not actually put him under indictment for those charges. But to me, it comes down to you're violating the player conduct, the team conduct, because you don't have evidence. They had quite a bit of evidence between the TSAs or whatever the teams were giving these girls, the non-disclosure agreements, the flights in and out, the evidence of him at the hotel. These girls filed charges. There was that evidence, and that to me is a violation of the code of conduct. Instead, they can turn it inside out again because they really don't, because we have the evidence of the cheerleaders filed 10 years ago when they were sexually harassed on that island by the Washington team. We had the evidence of the cheerleaders accusing Daryl Rimple of walking into their locker room. They had video evidence that got thrown out of court of Robert Kraft having a very happy ending at a strip store down there in South Florida. So again, it's just all about the NFL picking and choosing where they'll apply their justice. And at the end of the day, though, the games all start up next week, and we're just all ready to go out and watch. I'm not saying we're wrong for it. I'm just saying that until the fans decide that we're not going to put up with this, the NFL will just continue to be ran as they're ran.
Talking on that point, do you think part of the reason why his suspension was a bit more, because his suspension was a bit more, not just because they wanted it, because saying that they wanted it, and we all know that the NFL does this thing where they'll say something. Do you think they are gauging fan reaction and going, the majority of fans are PO'd off on this.
Yeah,
we need to make a bigger stance. So what we'll do is we'll go after them a bit more.
Please, Norman.
Well, I think it comes down as the business. What affects the business? A guy getting his jollies off in a hotel room doesn't affect the business, but the idea that there's players who are betting on the games in any degree, that affects business. That has a direct correlation to the NFL losing or gaining money. And that's why there's a policy that's going where they're going to stand up and say, we can't allow this at all. We can't allow this in any way, shape, form, or degree to become a thing. Because once you have guys vote, being able to find loopholes to gamble, then you're going to find teams exposing that and using that to say, hey, we just suspended this guy. He can't play. He runs off and starts making bets. I mean, you're just opening up. And once you start allowing loopholes to exist, they're going to start using those loopholes. And I think that's the NFL is just saying, look, we can't even begin to pretend that this is okay. And that's why they had to step up, because it affects business. Whereas a guy getting his jollies in a South Florida massage parlor, that's not business.
Let me ask you guys this.
That's just crazy old dude.
You take 20-year-old athletes and you take athletes between the ages of 22 and 32 years old, your stereotypical alpha males, and you put millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in their pockets, and they are literally the largest faction of the general public who are laying $1,000 on a putt on a golf course, or putting $100,000 down in a casino on a weekend, or they're making big bets with their friends. And, we look at it and we understand it, because we're all like that. We're fantasy football. We're playing, we're doing the squares for the Super Bowl. It's a little bit of not only a dopamine or endorphin release, but it's also part of what they are. But the NFL 2013, Roger Goodell doesn't even let the Vegas Tourism Bureau do a commercial during a Super Bowl. But now the NFL is literally making billions of dollars from DraftKings and MGM and Caesars and stuff like that. Either one of you, do you not think of this as, I can't put my finger on exactly what's going to happen, but there's going to be problems. There's going to be situations. There's going to be, they may not do it on their phones, but they're going to be laying money on the side or a bookie. They're going to have evidence, and it's just going to end up coming back and biting the league in the backside.
I think it's like one of those things of, when we hear about the whole like duffel bags of money in college football when they're recruiting before the NIL deals. I reckon this has been happening the whole time. It's just some people are more into it than others. You can always go and get family members to put money on for you. You can always get friends, and a lot of these people come from extended families, or they have a lot of street friends who are still with them today. You look at Pat McAfee, half his shows ran by people who grew up around. So it's not illogical for you to go up to your friend and say, "Can put that bet on for me." Now, can you trust them if you win big?
Yeah, that's the big.
But they're not losing anything. You said endorphins and a rush or doing something. Maybe it's not it's the winning and losing rather than just the money.
Well, how about you? How about you, Rodney? Do you follow college football? Do you follow college sports? Not, with a fine tooth comb, but you know enough about college football to know how it used to be and how it is now with name, image, and likeness. Do you find we always, and we go back, I think, at least Rodney and I are a little bit, older. Of course, Coach, you're a young cat, but you get it. You're actually a coach, so you understand that. We always thought the players deserve to get a little bit more cheese because they're making these institutions billions of dollars across the entire NCAA with television contracts.
Yeah.
But why did the NCAA all of a sudden at once just go, all right, go out and make all your own deals. We don't want to know about it. And then they're hoping that it's going to correct itself here in another couple of years, which you're starting to see institutions themselves make decisions on how to control name, image, and likeness money. But I mean, you should have came up with a pay structure or a way to get these kids paid and get them accommodated and also provide health care for the rest of their lives. Because, Coach, and maybe Rodney, you get to the level that these kids are playing in college football, they're going to have orthopedic issues. In some cases, they're going to have chronic traumatic encephalopathy issues. They're going to have issues their entire life. And once they're out of school and not making that institution any money, now the colleges are going to go, look, we let you guys make whatever you could while you were here. Now we're done with you. I need to see them taking care of these athletes and having set, plans for down the road if there are issues that come up, and they're doing this now and just letting them go and make whatever they can. It's just opened up a wild, wild west for me, and it just makes me feel dirty. No, not dirty. I said, you guys know what I mean.
I think a pay system should come into effect. I mean, it was originally the argument was the education that you're getting, but I wouldn't be surprised if most of the players that go on to get drafted don't complete their education and actually complete it when they're in the NFL. Like Levante David completed his education not so long ago, and we've heard about other players. They go to the college to get that NFL ticket stub. That's what they're at college for. Now, some of them double down and get the education as well, and that's when you have like the athlete scholars, that kind of stuff. But the majority of football players that probably come into the league and then and we're talking from, I'd say, day 1 draft picks to day 2 draft picks, probably haven't completed their whatever their degree was, and will either go back to it or won't go back to it.
Right.
So the whole point is saying we're paying you for an education. Well, you are if you stay the 4 years, but then you've got the added stress of if you're a quarterback and you have a season, you're in your second year or your third year, you get redshirt for your first, so you've only accrued technically 2 seasons.
Right.
And you go out and you have a ball out year, Heisman win. Are you staying if you can leave? Because right now your stock is high.
Right.
You stay there, get injured.
It makes more sense that if you're first or second year in college, you're already an NFL prospect. There's no reason to stay in college because now you're playing in the college ranks as a liability because you can get hurt on any given weekend or even in practice. So once you become viable to the NFL, I mean, you got to strike when the iron's hot. I mean, it's you got to get in there, and I don't fault anybody for jumping into the NFL when they have a shot at it, because things can change in 1 year. This game is too unpredictable on an individual level to take chances with it. If you got your shot, take it.
Rodney, let me ask you this.
That's what I like about what's going on now. So,
you follow, Tom Brady, right, Rodney? I mean, you know the Bucs, the whole
yes.
world knows. How do you think, he takes the 11 days off from camp? He was out between when the Dolphins came to town to scrimmage, and he comes back in time to play in the Indianapolis game. How did you think Tom looked after he came back, after he had a little nip and tuck?
That looked great.
Come on. Yeah, I thought maybe you'd run with it, my friend. No, I'm kidding. That was, of course, we all know the truth.
Well, you got to do something. You got to do something when your lizard
Lizard King
facade is starting to slip.
Well, we all know he was actually competing on the Masked Singer, so we'll wait for that to show up. But who do you like this year, Rodney? And first of all, thanks for coming in here. And it's not even my show, but I've enjoyed talking with you tonight. But who do you like this year in the NFL on the AFC and the NFC side to be in the Super Bowl, being 57?
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to come down to Cincinnati. I think they're going. Because they had a great season last year. I think they've made some good decisions. I think they're gonna go. I think they're gonna do it.
NFC.
And then on the NFC, I
got the dumb
look.
button
I
on.
want to say the Saints.
That's twice he's out of here now for the night. I'm kidding, Rodney.
No, I think it's going to be the Bucs or Green Bay. That's who I think it's going to come down to.
I like it. No, I like the Saints too. Dennis Allen, they're a defensive-minded team. How about Jameis Winston? Are you a fan of Jameis? Obviously you like the Saints, and I'll be honest. When I was growing up, we weren't in the same division at the time. The Bucs played in the NFC Central with the Vikings, the Packers, and Bears. Oh my, and Lions. But so I didn't hate the Saints because the Saints were the only team in the NFL that made the Bucs at the time seem halfway representable, with the brown paper bags on their heads, and of course the Aints. But I'm a bit of a Saints fan. Do you think Jameis Winston has a comeback year this year and is able to keep the Saints in contention, or they slip to third and let the Panthers go up to second?
I think he's going to get hurt again. He's too much of a wild card. He just if he would just sit back and play the game that he needs to play, he would be a great quarterback. But he wants to do everything, and so he's getting himself hurt. I don't see him changing this year either.
How about you,
Coach? The
Coach?
Saints got a bit more out of him, though, didn't they? The Saints, when they had him last year, he was 14 touchdowns to 4 interceptions?
Yeah, he was rocking. What scares me though is well, they said that he's in camp now, but he's still wearing that brace, and like Rodney's alluding to there, it's like, that doesn't sound like he's all healed up. That doesn't sound like this couldn't be a recurring problem for him this year. The guy's still got one of the top 10 arms in the league, I think. We're still to see if his defensive reading's gotten better, but if that injury continues to be a problem, then yeah, that could really hinder their chances.
Absolutely. I mean, they don't really have anyone after that. I mean, most teams really don't. Like, if you look at teams, most teams would trade away. If you could turn around and say you can guarantee Tom Brady not being in the team from day one all the way to the end of the playoffs, but you've got to get rid of one defensive starter, you do it, because you probably can fill that hole. You will not go to the playoffs if you put Blaine Gabbert in.
I disagree. Now,
I said probably. I didn't say wouldn't.
Well, no, here's I've been beating this drum.
Okay.
I didn't see enough in the preseason to this year to say I think Blaine Gabbert would have been your best choice for 2022 had Tom Brady not come back. And I know everybody says, well, the Bucs were talking to Deshaun's camp. They were looking at a Jimmy Garoppolo or they were looking at what have you. And I think we've all came around to know that if anything, Kyle Trask, he's not ready yet. I'm not ready to say the jury's back. I think the sample size this season, we saw more lows than highs. We did see some small window throws. We saw some game management. I saw enough to know that Coach Arians, being the quarterback, he's the king's hand at this point now for the Buccaneers, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not the king, but he's the king's hand. A little Game of Thrones reference, but
I like that.
Right. I heard him. He was actually on the Pardon My Take podcast through Barstool Sports just today, actually. And he was talking, and he was talking about Blaine Gabbert. He said, they asked him what players he's played, coached that'll make the best. What player has he coached would make the best coach in the National Football League? He talked about Levante David. I tend to agree with Levante being not only as smart as he is, but even keeled with enough temperament to get real. But he used Blaine Gabbert. He said Blaine Gabbert is, and it's probably why he brought him out to the Cardinals, and he brings him here again. One of the first things he does when he comes here in 2019. But I really think that this Buccaneers team is stacked, packed, and ready to get whacking in the NFC South enough that even if Tom, for some reason, started working at Fox this year because Rupert Murdoch rose and said, I'll give you $100 million a year for 20 years to start today. And Tom just said, I can't pass this up. I think that this team has enough talent. The thing is, though, and this scares me, Rodney, maybe you agree, the team that I saw in the preseason while Tom was away from camp was very uninspired. So from that leadership void, you'd need to see Devin White and Levante David and Vita Vea. You'd need to see Donovan Smith, Mike Evans. Oh, Mike Evans, number one. You'd need to see leadership arise all over this team. I think that the components are there to do it. So I tend to think that even a Blaine Gabbert could quarterback this team to success in 2022. Fortunately and hopefully, we don't have to even worry about it. Sorry,
I agree with you. I think the first two preseason games, that's what the Bucs looked like without their leader, because he was not there at all, like in any shape or form in those games. And I'm not saying you could see it, but because it's preseason, it's hard to tell because the team's constantly being changed per every series. So you can't really turn around and say where it's top heavier. No one's really taking control because most of the vets are just sat on the sideline. So it's not the same.
Right.
But I agree with that. I think that's going to be the biggest thing going into next season is who's going to be the people who stand up, because it's going to have to be somebody that they respect. It can't always be a coach, because it's got to be someone who's fighting with them. And that's an argument.
Well, Rodney, let me ask you this. Jimmy Garoppolo, right? The 49ers quarterback who just renegotiated. I think he got a pretty good deal, making a little bit north of $6.5 million. That can go up to $16 million. They've only got him for 1 year. He's under contract now with the 49ers for 1 year. And unless Trey Lance completely bombs out in 2022 and they somehow decide that they're going to franchise Garoppolo next year, that kid's a free agent on the market next year. Any possibility that if Tom wins 57 and gets the Bucs their third Super Bowl and his eighth, and then rides off into the sunset with Giselle on an elephant on safari, any chance that the Bucs might look to bring a Jimmy Garoppolo in here, a proven leader, still quite early in the game, that's recovering from injury, has a solid backup year in the 49ers, and maybe comes to Tampa Bay and gets a contract here to be the Bucs starter?
I don't think so.
Wow.
I don't think he would fit what they've got going.
Right.
I mean, it is a difficult
they're going. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to bring in a quarterback to keep going what you've already got going, I mean, theoretically, I mean, he was with the Patriots under Brady for what was it, 2 seasons, so he knows the Brady system,
right?
But what he's proven in San Francisco is that he has a different system. He has a different way of playing than Brady does. And that's kind of why the Patriots let him go. It was because he was a great quarterback, but they knew he wasn't their guy. He wasn't their system. So they were willing to let him go. And I think the Bucs are going to see that same thing, that he's a great quarterback playing his game, but he's not going to step in and take over for Tom Brady, because it's a different game.
That's deep.
It's a different offense.
What do you think,
I have to agree. I have to agree. I
Yeah.
mean, the Buck system is. I mean, we know it will change this year. It's not going to be exactly the same as the completely no risk it, no biscuit vertical offense. But we know that that's going to be a part of it. And one thing we've seen from him is that's not really his shtick, or that's not really his vibe of what he does.
Mm.
He's very more of the old dink it and donk it, which is how what everyone said Tom Brady was before he came to Tampa.
Mm.
Everyone said, "Oh, he's a dink it and donk it system quarterback," and then he came here and went, "Well, I am the system, and I can mold myself." And he had led the league in deep passes and all these things that a 44-year-old should never ever do, apparently. But he did them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're going to get that resurgence from someone like Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm high on Jimmy Garoppolo because he knows how to win.
He's a manager.
Yeah, he's a great quarterback. Yeah.
He's a game manager, and he knows how to read defenses. That's for
Plus,
sure.
I think he wants to go. I don't think he wants to be seen as the guy that took over for Tom Brady. I think he wants to be the guy that did it. Does his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and and money talks. Money talks. I understand that, but what quarterback in the league would want to come in? I mean, Mac Jones gets drafted in New England and he's filling in, and we'll see if he gets through the bumps and bruises of not having Josh McDaniel as an offensive coordinator. But, Kyle Trask almost has to be your heir apparent here in Tampa Bay, and possibly with a Blaine Gabbert here for another year. Because I don't know any other quarterback in the league, unless the Bucs are going to just pay an exorbitant amount of money to bring one of those veterans in here, who'd want to come in here and follow Tom Brady or try to play in that shadow? Or maybe it's just a team is so stacked that they'd want the opportunity to take a run for a ring.
Yeah, there's always that. Always that possibility.
I mean, when you have a stacked roster, it always helps. But we've also got to remember that we also have a lot of free agents to re-sign as well. So money's going to be tight. We've got Cotton Davis got signed this year. So we've got Mike Edwards, we've got Sean Murphy-Bunting and Jamal Dean. Just to name a few on defense. Hicks is up, Galston's up, Devin White's up, Levante David's up. This year.
Let me ask Rodney this, because you're, I say old school, but I mean going back, and you obviously no, I mean we are. We go. I'm 73, but I slept at a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm feeling good. Devin White may become, Devin White, Bucs draft him in the first round out of LSU. And even before he's drafted, one of the flags that went up for me was when he said, "I'm already working on my second contract." Now, as a fan of the Buccaneers, you say, good, earn that second. We get paid that second contract. But you saw the Bears, they didn't step up and pay Roquan Smith that money he wanted. And there was some a year ago thought he'd be the first $100 million a year contract linebacker. The Bucs going to be able to pay Devin White that $100 million contract, or that $25 million a year, you guys think, and still try to keep Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and still try to do the other things they want to do?
I don't see anybody really going for that kind of money, just for that very, very fact. I mean, to be able to get that kind of money for an extended period of time, you've got to be so exceptional that they're willing to take the gamble on it. And I just don't see anybody really being able to pull the trigger on that, because you're giving up so much to get that one thing now. Yes. This is why I kind of dislike the whole salary cap, is because it adds some gamesmanship to the head office, but when it comes right down to it, people are not getting fully what they deserve, because you got to be, you got to have people who are willing to take cuts to help other people get deals.
You've got some people earning too much, and you got other guys earning not enough.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, you're a defensive coordinator, or you're a defensive coach, right? You coach defense. Middle linebacker, you love a stud like Devin White going sideline to sideline, and I think he's going to show us his improved pass coverage skills. But you're talking about also having a Vita Vea, and you talked about Mike Edwards and Sean Murphy-Bunting, or some of the other pieces you have to pay for. and that's just one side of the ball. Do you think middle linebacker is, because there's a lot of people in the school of thought that don't think the middle linebacker is as important as the quarterback of a defense in a lot of cases. There's a lot of people that find it really hard to grasp making a middle linebacker $100 million a year player and still trying to think about the other defensive pieces and a Vita Vea defensive line and then your quarterback and your wide receiver. It's a tough ask.
I think the thing that makes Levante David earn that second big piece of cheese was the fact that it's the explosive plays that you get out of him. And that's what Devin White needs to bring to the table, because traditionally your middle linebacker calls out the play, gets everyone set and makes a tackle. He's not supposed, and occasionally will get the forced fumble. If you're intercepting the football, you're returning it for touchdowns, you're knocking the ball out, you're sacking the quarterback, you're being an absolute nuisance to the offense and you're completely throwing everything off, then you're worth the time, because you have to be a big problem. If you are just going to be a sit back, stand back there, read it, see ball run, hit ball, then you probably won't earn a heck of a lot of money, because there are multiple people who can do that. You need to have something that is, for like Levante David's sake, it was the fact that he could get the ball out so easily and he made so many plays. If you look at the stats of Levante David of tackles for a loss from the middle backer position, or even the outside backer position, which he played originally, the will backer position.
Right.
He was going sideline to sideline from there, and still, if you look at him compared to JJ Watt, he has slightly, I think it might be slightly less or slightly more tackles for a loss than an all-pro defensive lineman. And he plays 5 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, in the 4-3 defense, or I'm sorry, in a 3-4 defense, if you had to pick, if you had to say you're going to lose, you can only keep one of these two players, and you're not taking into account leading the league in sacks 2 years ago, and of course the big contract that Shaq Barrett gets there at outside linebacker, or having a Devin White inside. Let's say the ages are the same, because Shaq's a couple of years older. He's a little bit more of a grizzled veteran. You spending that $30 million or $100 million contract to sign a outside linebacker who has direct impact on the rush on just about every play, or going inside on a 3-4 defense to a not taken away from Devin White. The guy's a beast and he's a phenomenal linebacker. But, I think about Derek Brooks and the Bucs when they ran a 4-3, but they ran the cover 2, the Tampa 2. Derek Brooks as a middle linebacker was the quarterback of that defense. He was the connection between John Lynch and Rondé Barber in the secondary, and, Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice and the guys up front. He was the quarterback of that defense, unquestioned. I haven't seen enough from Devin White yet to say, like you said, Coach, that he's going to be that unquestioned leader that you need him to be, not only making the sidelines, but making a direct impact in the backfield and also covering receivers on the fly.
Absolutely. I mean, with Devin White's shown enough. I would like to, if he wants to turn himself into that multi-million dollar, $100 million player, then he's probably going to have to play like Micah Parsons at this point. You can put him anywhere and that kid shows up. Now, we've only got 1 year, so we only know from 1 year's experience, but leading the amount of sacks that guy got, and they could put him at nickel, they could put him at as an edge rusher, and they could put him in the middle, and he was still eating everything up, and he got the interceptions. That guy was probably the most explosive linebacker last year, unquestioned, in my opinion, from explosive playability. So you'd have to do something like that. Now, in his second season for
Dallas.
White,
Devin White, I'm sorry.
For Devin White, he did have that, was it almost 10 sacks? Like he was really on the radar of like, oh my God, this middle linebacker's got so many. And he got them from the middle linebacker position, whereas Micah Parsons probably gets them from a mixture of being a Will or Sam backer, overhanging off the edge, which is easy playing reverse running back. He's basically reading the holes and getting in there. Right. That's basically how I coach it. If you're a blitzer, you're a reverse running back. You're looking through the hole to get through, but you have a hole.
That's true. You're an opportunistic player. That's what I used to love it. I played linebacker my senior year in high school. Transition from the quarterback position, and coach. Toward the end, it was just basically. I remember the first time I got game time in it was in just jamboree the year before. Coach called for, I was playing the Mike linebacker, and it was just run the blitz the entire fourth quarter, and it was great because that's what you literally do. You're looking just for the hole, and you're becoming that opportunistic player. And I like that reverse. I've never thought about it as a reverse running back, but that's
how I
basically exactly what you are.
That's what I coach it as. Think of instead of sorry, go ahead.
You're the bizarro back.
I like that. Yeah.
You know what? No, I was going to say, I just wanted to go ahead and say, though, I'm not saying that Devin can't be that guy or hasn't already shown enough that the Bucs better be already working on that contract to make sure they keep that kid happy. I'm just saying that when I start to think about that big contract it's going to take to Devin, or what he'd be worth on the open market, and I continue to figure out how this team, if we're looking for quarterback options in a year, we've already exercised the 5th-year option, so we've got Devin through next year, but obviously even as early as this season, or even now, would possibly be the time that the Buccaneers might start thinking about a contract extension, because the sooner you pay, the less you're going to pay, little bits. And also you may be able to structure it that you may be able to open a little extra money here in 2022 to work on that offensive line depth, which is obviously going to be something the Bucs are going to be contending with all year as well to stay in championship contention.
Yeah. It's just the magnitude of amount of players we've got to sign, I think, which makes this one particular. William Goulston's up. Hicks is up, Devin White's up, Levante David's up. So now you've got to pick: do you want to go with the young buck, or do you want to go with the older, more experienced guy? Because both of them up at the same time. I looked this up, and yeah, it's they're both up at the same time. And then you've got Mike Edwards, and you've got Murphy Bunting and Jamal Dean.
Yeah, you're basically your entire secondary. You got Antoine Winfield, who you just drafted 2 years ago, and
the year after.
Do me a favor, Rodney. You tell me. By the way, thank you for sticking around with us. This has been fun. But tell me, why should young Bucs fans that have never had a chance, because it's been 13 years since the Bucs wore their throwback uniforms, and that's the ones I grew up on. Why should the Buccaneer fans that have never seen the Bucs play live, of course, Levante David being the last current Buccaneer on the roster who actually wore those throwbacks his rookie year. Goldstein was drafted or came to the team the next year, so he's never worn them. But tell me, Rodney, why should the younger Bucs fans be either excited or not excited to see the Buccaneers wearing that winking pirate and Bucko Bruce in those throwback uniforms? I gave you all kinds of angles.
Hey, look, you know what? I only eat at McDonald's once every year, and I do so just to remind myself why I don't eat at McDonald's.
Oh, God.
And that's why they need to have the throwback jerseys to remind Tampa Bay we didn't know what we were doing at one point in time. And it was embarrassing.
I know.
So you can learn to appreciate what we have now.
Hey, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Brother, hey, Rodney, and Coach, if you don't mind, I just want to tell us where we can find you, Rodney. So if we ever want to catch some of this humor, or maybe follow you on social media, or just get a chance to talk with you and get some jokes.
Well, I'm on all the social medias: the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok, the YouTube. I'm even kind of on Twitter. Nobody follows me on Twitter, but I'm there.
Tinder?
Or you just no, I haven't done Tinder yet.
You sure? Because I'd swipe right, brother. I'd swipe right.
I got to be honest with you. That's the weirdest thing for me with this newfound fame is how often I get hit on and solicited by women. And I'm going, okay, I'm older. This is the goofiest I've ever looked. And this is what women like. This should be a testament to every man out there, just to know that women really don't care about looks. I don't know what it is, but if you could just show a little fake confidence, they're all for you. That's what I'm saying, ladies,
funny.
Gentlemen.
Fake confidence.
But no, RodneyNorman.com. That's got all my stuff on there. You can see where I'm at and what I'm doing, and we're just having a good time. I'm just another idiot. I'm just another squirrel trying to get a nut. That's it.
Speaking of women, though, Rodney, if you don't mind, I'll leave you with this one. My wife, she's always judging me and trying to tell me what to do. And out in the front yard standing the other day, and she comes out and she says, "Quit acting like a flamingo." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" She said, "Quit imitating a flamingo." I had to put my foot down. It's not getting funnier at all, is it?
I'm waiting for this to go through.
That's the punchline, guys. That's as good as it gets. I'm so sorry.
Sometimes a good dad joke, though, they just make you smile. I think that's what they're there for. They're there for a good chuckle. You're like, oh no.
They make us smile. They make the kids roll their eyes. Rodney,
Yeah.
it's been nice talking with you, my friend.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope we can do this again.
Yeah,
I'd be glad to.
All right, brother. You take care of Mr. Rodney, and we'll talk to you soon. Rodney Norman, comedian, coming to the state of Florida, coming to Orlando. Make sure you check him out. And you said it was rodneynorman.com?
Yep.
Fantastic, brother. You take care. Keep smiling.
All right, you too, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, it's your show, Coach. Why don't you land this plane? Show me how you land this thing.
Right. So we talked about a little bit about the guys that could be leaving, but let's talk about what we got.
Yes.
The Buccaneers still haven't finished fielding 2 of their practice squad roster spots, and we know that we cut Logan Ryan, and Logan Ryan will be back. It's been alluded to in the press conferences, so we know that's going to happen. The roster's going to change probably a little bit more. My question for you is, if you had a bold thing you'd like to do to the Buccaneers, you're GM right now, and you go, right, our team needs trade, free agent pickup, or free agent pickup, or trying to get somebody off waivers or someone who's floating around. What would you do if your franchise? There's no wrong answer.
Okay. The low-hanging fruit would be offensive line depth, right? Just because that's been the biggest and hottest thing. But also, I'm hoping that the reason why the Bucs made addressed the keeping the younger guys and made the decisions they made with some of the personnel, I'm hoping it's because they do have a plan for special teams. Because one thing we saw throughout, and of course I heard that, Coach was telling Jake Camarda to purposely outkick his coverage, to just work on his leg and figure how long he could make it. The kid's got a phenomenal leg. He's a phenomenal athlete, the rookie punter from Georgia. But I need to see some gunners, man. I need to see some tacklers, because if the preseason carries over into the regular season at all, we're giving up, I'm just guesstimating here, but we're giving up an average of 15-point-something yards per return on kicks and punts. And I'll tell you what, we don't have Bradley Pinion kicking off anymore. And it seems like we're going to have, there's going to be balls falling down. There's going to be balls all over the place. There's going to be balls coming down at the 5-yard line, at the 1 and stuff. And there's going to be returns. And we got to make sure we keep these things in check, because one of the things that the Buccaneers have done pretty well over the last couple of years, and especially in 2020 and Super Bowl 55 champions, is we were winning that field. We were winning that turn, the field position. We were winning that battle, which that's actually where it all starts, right, Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that always helps us when we got special teams is a good returner. So, if you've got a good punter who can get those kicks and turn them into touchbacks, then that helps. Or if you can get those pinning kicks that kind of bounce and they get to that 5, What I've never seen, one thing I'd like to see a bit more is more of the, I use it in Madden all the time, so I don't know how easy it's to translate in real life, because I've never really punted. But I'm rugby first. That's what I got into first. And then I found football and got into football as well. Is rugby kickers have what's called a banana kick, where they punt the ball usually while they're running,
right?
So it's quite impressive. And the ball has to bounce just before it goes out of bounds for it to be considered out of bounds. Otherwise, the ball goes back to where it was.
Coffin corner.
The ball has to bounce out before it goes. Anyway, what I'm alluding to is, why does nobody seem to kick for the corner pylon and try and get it to bounce to hit just inside? I do it all the time in Madden. Right. Nobody seems to do it in real life. They want to do that, try and get it in. I think you got more chance of causing a more explosive play. But I think when you're in that, if you're at the 50, so you're probably not got the goal kicker to go and knock that puppy through. Why not rocket that ball down to the sideline right before the pylon? I do it all the time, and I always get them blocked at the 10. And I'm not saying, I know Madden's not real life. I'm well aware of this. never seen it really attempted. Everyone seems to go right down the middle or to the side a little bit, but they don't really kick to the straight to the sidelines, which
I
just
got
seems
good.
insane.
I got good news for you because I love it. You're talking about again. I know I said it, but I don't know if it was coffin corner, right? Because that's what Ray Guy used to do. That's
Yes,
what
that's it. Coffin
Reggie
corner.
Roby, and that was one of the most phenomenal things about the punt was the punters who could get it like you said to bounce. Oh, the most beautiful one is when it literally bounces and makes a right hand turn just at the pylon
Hmm.
or a left hand turn. That's art to me. That's I've had a thing for kickers my entire life. It goes back to we used to have a friend that lived by Neil O'Donoghue out there in Indian Rocks Beach. Good friends, Steve Alfred and Neil O'Donoghue's wife used to topless sunbathe on her dock, and it's a long story. But and then of course the Bucks bring in, we bring in Garo Yepremian from the Dolphins, and Garo Yepremian was just the most phenomenal kicker. But these are kickers. One good thing I can tell you though, Coach, is that one of the reasons a pretty big reason why the Georgia Bulldogs were national champions in 2021 is this kid, this Jake Camarda, this punter the Buccaneers now have on this roster. He does that. He's good at directional kicking. And I think we will see situations where they're 100% doing that. And I think that's going to be a great thing for this year. It's just the kickoffs or when we're punting from inside of our 20 or 30-yard line, when that's, directional kicking is still an option, but you got to make tackles. And we've got to see this Buccaneers teams really step up. I think we're going to see it. I think that this team is too stacked and too ready to be drugged down by young guys not wanting to make tackles. It's just what scares me is when we see a CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys, or when we see a Jamar Chase for the Bengals. Some of these teams, you get late in the game and the game's on the line, they're going to put these receivers in that have 4.3 speed, and they're just rock star receivers. And this special teams unit's going to have to be on their P's and Q's to make sure we get those tackles and win that field position battle.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing is if you're late in the game and you need to start getting points on field position, you need to get it down the field quick. You probably are going to put somebody with a bit more, I would say, savvy who can, especially with someone who's got that whole run after contact kind of thing.
Yes.
When my team played last year, we had a guy on our team who was a punter. He was also our return guy. So what they decided to do, our offense stunk at the time.
Right.
We weren't really moving the ball very well. And I suggested, why not just direct to him every single fourth down and just get him to run it? Because he could kick and run at the same time. So he could run it. But watch rugby. Just watch a game of rugby union. There's a lot of especially they do what's called kicking tennis, where teams will just trade kicks backwards and forwards to each other to try and manipulate field position and get a player to pull out a position, and then they'll bomb it down there and it will bounce out and they'll get field position from that. So watch a little bit of that, and a lot of them they slow down as they kick, but they do generally, they're not full speed or anything like that. But they're in movement, and some of them will move left to right and then boot the ball, and they still have to make it back.
And you said you played rugby. That was your game.
Yes, I played wing.
Okay, so wing, but you're still involved in some of those. They call it a scrum. I mean, when you got all the guys.
I'm far too pretty for that.
That's what I was going to say. With face and hair like that, it'd be such a waste of talent to have you stuck in the middle here. But tell me, I got to know, because I really don't know what kind of things go on in that pile. Is it a general thing of respect and for each other, or is there some dirty things going on in that scrum in that pile?
Well, it's what the Americans generally call a scrum is what we would call a ruck. So a scrum is very organized. It's actually a bunch of guys binded onto each other. Then they bend down, and then they have to collide with each other. It's been a lot more, what's the word? It's been a bit more coached by the referees to make it. There used to be a lot of neck injuries in it. Okay. So now they used to just smash.
Yes.
And the whole goal was they were trying to force the other team to go down, because then if you force them to go down, you'll milk a penalty, which you can kick for 3 points. Right. So you'd get into a position, teams with good scrums would get into field position and just smash into you, cause you to milk the penalty. Then you'd kick it, you get 3 points, and you keep constantly moving the scoreboard. Or it will get you out of dodge. If you're backed up, you've got a scrum, you bang them, you can kick the ball for field position, things like that. So a lot of them did that, but they changed it to a point where there's a lot more controlled. To be honest, I don't think anybody knows what's really going on in the scrum. It's just one of those things. I don't even think referees know. It's just one of those.
I just
But
learned more.
rucks are dirty. Rucks are really dirty. So ruck in rugby union is when a player is tackled down and both teams will compete over the ball. So when you're tackled down in rugby, you present the ball to your side of the field so that the next player can pick it up and throw it or do something with it. Before that happens, the other team's going to try and take the ball off you. You can't hold on to it. You are a tackle player. The tackler has to get back up on his feet if he wants to snag the ball, and you have to just present the ball. Usually what happens is then two groups of players from both sides will collide with each other and one will protect the ball and the other one will be trying to get to it. There are rules. You can't go around the outside. You have to go through. And then the scrum half, who is the next playmaker, will deliver it to the 10, who's the quarterback, so to speak.
Is kicking the only way to score? You got to kick it, and it's got to go between the posts. Am
No,
I correct on that?
You get what's our version of a touchdown. You run the ball across the white line, or the ball touches the ball physically has to touch the in goal area. So the ball actually has to be touched down in that sense. So you
got to carry it across or put it down, and their job is to tackle you or keep you out or from putting it down.
Exactly.
That's crazy. Have you ever had a chance to see the All Blacks play?
No, I've watched them many a times, but not live in person. I've seen Samoa, Fiji, and Tonga, and they all do a war dance too.
Jesus, because that to me, that not embodies all of what rugby is, but that's that nature and that fever, that intimidation factor. Because I'm intimidated by rugby because I just know so little about it. Now I'll see a rugby match on and I'll watch it. I'll turn it on and I'll watch it, but I'll watch it and I'll know I'll see some incredible athletes with the biggest legs and running around and doing what they do. But as far as knowing all the rules, it's sad. I have no idea. So I'm gonna have to get with you and get some more knowledge on that so I can enjoy a good rugby
I'll tell you
match.
one thing you'd want to watch and you'd really enjoy. Have you watched the All Blacks documentary on Amazon Prime?
No, I have that. I'll definitely watch that.
So they did an All or Nothing on the All Blacks.
Oh, no way. An All or Nothing?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
So it goes through there, and it's quite a transition period because they lost a lot of their players from winning the last World Cup. So a lot of them retired because they double won. So they won the one before that, and then they won the current one, which it's never been done before because the Rugby World Cup's only been going since 1987, and it's only every 4 years. And the All Blacks have always been a team that struggled to win it. They'd only won it once until recently.
Now, don't ruin it for me, but I just last night started watching, and I don't know if you've watched it, but you may even know. I started watching Wrexham on Hulu, and that's of course the Ryan Reynolds and. Do you know I'm talking about the Wales, the team from Wales that bought that soccer team?
Yes.
So I got done watching the second episode last night where they didn't make the playoffs in the first season when they bought them, so they had to fire the coach and almost I think all of the team. Do you know how that story goes real time live, or don't spoil it?
I don't follow soccer, to be honest.
Okay, good. Then you don't have to spoil it for me. Actually, you should check it out.
I can't spoil it for you.
You should check it out though, because that's football. No, I'm just kidding. Listen to me telling you. So, talking about the Bucs now, the Dallas Cowboys have that problem. They lose their left tackle. They got another guy that can come in, so they've had some issues too. But Dak Prescott, they say he's in the best shape he's been in 2 years now, removed from the injury. I was worried when the Cowboys came here last year on Thursday night for the NFL opener. I thought the Bucs could take care of business, but I said, watch out because this Dallas team does have some talent. And you make the Micah Parsons point out, and you talk about what Dan Quinn's doing on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know if Mike McCarthy's smart enough to get out of his own way, but now we go in there on next Sunday night, go to their stadium, AT&T Stadium, on an 8:20 Sunday night nationally televised game. You a little worried about some of the things that the Cowboys might be able to do, or we just kind of pretty confident in the fact that the Bucs should be able to lock it down?
I'm going to be brutally honest in my thought process. I'm always worried. Because I know I'm always worried because I know what it's like for any team can beat any team. And I know how tough our schedule is to begin with. So we really do need to hit the ground running. I think the Buccaneers know this. I think that's probably the thing that's preached is, guys, you're not going to be in your own beds until middle of September, right towards the end of September. So you guys really need, and I think part of me was kind of hoping why the Indianapolis. I know it's a preseason game, but I would have liked a little bit of win to go into the season. Just Do you know what I mean? Just to get that feeling,
Yes.
because we hadn't won anything. So, and I know it's preaching, it doesn't mean anything, but it's a psychological thing. And I'm big on when it comes to football and players. I'm so big into like the psychology behind it. So my team, we forfeited a game, and I was so angry about it because I said, "You don't realize." And I said to the people who just the top brass who run the club, I said, "You do not know how detrimental that is to the players." And they're like, "Yeah, but we didn't have enough players." Like, they were willing to walk through hot coals for it, and I was willing to
Yes.
don the pads too. You do not realize how much you've set us back mentally as a football team. Like, we don't believe we can win now because you don't think we can win. And you
Wow.
alluded to that when you turned around and said, we are cancelling a game because we don't think we're good enough, because that's what you're saying. And they were like, we never thought of it that way. And I went, but that's what you've done.
Yeah.
And now my
And
team is in complete turmoil and is actually on the bridge of collapse. So I actually have to find another job.
Oh, well, that's terrible. But I want to say that, the Julio and the Russell Gage and the Chris Godwin, and they all work it, and I don't think anyone's thinking that the team's not gonna be practiced. And one of the angles I like for the Buccaneers in 2022 is that now that Todd Bowles is your head coach, same thing that you got with Dennis Allen when he was the interim last year when Sean Payton had COVID. Like, what did he have it 17 times the last 2 years? Um, but you saw that Saints defense, because they were like, hey, this is our coach that's running this team now. And you saw them step up. And unlike back in 2002, when Tony Dungy had built one of the best defenses in the history of the National Football League, but they had to find offense. And they go out and they get John Gruden and they get, running backs and Joe Gervais, and we bring guys in. Now you got a team that's stacked and packed on the offensive side of the ball, and still one of the most phenomenally talented defensive teams in the National Football League. You saw how they won that. They played in the postseason in 2020. So that's been an exciting thing for me. But I would have liked to have seen them have a little more success in the preseason as well, just like you said, to get that momentum, because we know what momentum can mean for a team. And I think they're going to show up on day one, but I think that I don't think they even know what the full picture looks like with the new pieces in place and what this offense is going to do in 2022.
Absolutely. I think the thing they've got to get right straight off, they got to run the ball.
Big time.
First and foremost, they've got to run the football. Once you run the football, you're establishing control of the game. We've seen, and especially in 2021, we sometimes look like we abandoned the run game and went straight to the passing game because we just had so much success with it.
Yeah.
And we need to become a team that is dual threat. And I don't mean like a dual threat quarterback, but as in, yeah, if you think you can stop the pass, we'll run it up you, which is what we kind of did in 2020. We were all, I wouldn't say we're still more pass oriented, and I think we always will be. That's the Buccaneers' identity at the moment. When you have that many air weapons, you've got to utilize it. I'd like to see a bit more screen game. I'd like to see a bit more. If you can get Scotty Miller to work as a screen worker, and that's burst of speed that he's got, he could break big really well if you can convert him into that role, which is kind of what I'm hoping with
Jalen Darden. That's
Darden,
exactly right. Well, we've seen it with Darden and they didn't have as much success, but we saw it last year where they pulled the quick, the one step behind the line and throw the quick out in the flat to him. The defense read it well, but I honestly at that time, and I'm not just playing off what you said, but it kind of does. I am playing off what you said, that we were a pass first team. So the defenders were cheating up because they could cover the flats and it didn't work. But man, if you're running Leonard Fournette and Rashid White straight up the middle, and of course, like you said, Fournette being a contact first running back, you're making that defense play the run on us first. Now it's going to open up those flats, and you can have those screen passes that can get lots of play action as well. And you're going to keep Tom upright. And that's the most important thing.
Exactly. I mean, that's what they've got to do. If they can establish the run in the game, I think they'll be pretty solid. When it comes to the defense, it's trench warfare. I think that's the only thing you can do. You've got to make him uncomfortable, because, and he's a very comfortable quarterback under pressure. If you look at his stats, how well he actually throws better under pressure than he does without pressure. So maybe you don't feel any pressure, but he's a very good under pressure quarterback. And I'm starting to see a lot of these kids coming in who seem to be unfazed by pressure. Now, I don't know if that's because they're stupid, and I mean that with no disrespect, or that they're unfazed by pressure. because I've seen when we were going up against a lot of quarterbacks, even though we were sacking them or hitting them or getting to them, they seem unfazed by pressure, which is kind of a little bit nerve-wracking because the whole point of a defensive line is to make you think that extra second.
Right.
But I think we can get there. I think with Vita Vea, I'd like to see what Hicks can do truly. We're going to rotate. We're probably going to end up rotating Logan Hall in a fair bit. Nunez Roches has been, in all fairness, I would call him right now the unsung hero of the Buccaneers defensive line, and that's no slight on William Galston, who is probably the most underrated starter on our team for sure. Right. I think some people don't even realize he is a starter. I think a lot of people still think we run a 4-3, and he's just a rotational end, but he really isn't. He is the starter, and he's probably the one that probably has the least amount of kudos. The best thing that ever happened to his career was this defense.
I'll tell you what, between what we're going to see with Vea and Hicks rolling around on the inside, rolling around in the middle. But honestly, I can't tell you why I feel this way, but I can't put my finger on why. But I think Joe Tryon-Shoyinka this year, I think that speed he's going to bring, because we forget, it's basically your JPP replacement. That's your Jason Pierre-Paul.
Yep.
But I've seen Tryon. I saw him the Miami game. I saw, he didn't play, but I've seen him, the speed and the size, and it just looks like the chemistry he's built with this defense. He's not a weakness. I think he ties it together. I think he really does. I think that Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I'm going to go on a limb and say he's going to have. What do I put? Am I going too far to say 10 sacks on the year?
He got 6 last year, didn't he?
Yeah, and he was still trying to put it all together last year, and that was after basically a year with the injury coming in. Maybe even more. Maybe between him on the right side and you got Shaq Barrett on the left side pinching the corners and Hicks and Vea in the middle there. I mean, you start to really, you got to think that these quarterbacks, even though we're facing the best quarterbacks in the league this year, it seems, all the way across the board from Patrick Mahomes to Joe Burrow to, Aaron Rodgers here in week 3, that first home game you alluded to. I got to think that this defense is at least making these offensive coordinators stay up lose a little sleep at night trying to figure out how to game plan for this team.
I, for one, want to see the most out of the secondary because it's one thing that, if I would say, I've never been a huge worrier of it because I understand how that part of the defense works. I'm a DB coach, and that's where I started. I started as a corner, then I worked my way to free safety. Free safety is my favorite position to play. Because you just get to read everything, and I'm quite loud, so I tend to shout about everything. But that being said, a lot of Buccaneers fans post game day, you see, we can't cover, and I think what a lot of people need to understand is we can cover. Our defense from a pass point of view is probably it's about mid-tier. If you look at where we are, which isn't great,
right?
But you have to understand that no teams abandon the run against us. That means you're getting that volume of extra at least 10 more plays that you wouldn't normally have. So that's difficult. Then the beat up secondary on top of that. I really want the Buccaneers secondary to make that extra step and become a formidable air defense as well as, they look good in 2020, but if they can really hit that mark in 2022 and become that, we are locking down the field. You are not getting any part of it. And if you do, we'll punish you when you do catch that ball. And you'll be thinking about me breathing on you next time.
And I'm putting too much emphasis on the preseason, Coach, but I also want to make sure I know it was second and third stringers, but there were a few times in those 3 preseason games where we saw that the Buccaneers, the secondary did seem to be covering better, and the guys but the quarterbacks, when they got out of the pocket or they found a seam, they were going, seemed like on average between 8 and 15 yards of rush on us. And I know, again, preseason, yada, yada.
But it's not Levante David back there. It's not Devin White back there who has that speed. You ain't gonna run. You shouldn't be able to run far. Running quarterbacks is a difficult monster because it is especially when it's unscripted, because it is one of those plays that just happens. And if you've got a good running quarterback, it's a dangerous weapon to have because it puts your linebackers on their P's and Q's. They have to be smart.
Yes.
People always say spy, and my argument to spy is you can't have someone spy all the time. It's
Because you're
just not
losing that
feasible.
player. You're losing
Yeah, of
that
course.
player, right? I mean, you may be ready for that
But maybe you
quarterback.
spy on third down, or you spy on fourth down.
Right.
You become more savvy with it between yardage as well. If it's third and 2, he's probably going to run it, but you're probably not going to stop that run unless you really spy it hard. But then that's
Well,
when you rely on your corners to contain everything. Not
right.
corners, sorry, your ends to contain everything. But that depends on your scheme because some people have different schemes.
Well, the thing with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is that's why a lot of people saw last year we were a little worried because they were like, he's got to gain a little weight, he's got to hold the corner, he's got to pinch the end because he rushes so hard upfield that you basically leave that spot open. And as well as I do, Coach, that okay, call them outside linebackers, but we can call them defensive ends in the outside linebacker position. But they need to have contain on those corners because you can't open those corners up because that's exactly what a defense will look for is a hard charging defender to open up that hole and then use it to your advantage. So, I mean, if I'm Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, or I'm Andy Reid and the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, you got to imagine that they're working in a healthy dose of rolling out of the pocket because number one, you've already said both of those quarterbacks phenomenal outside the pocket, but then also bury the lead. They're both pretty fast too. So we're gonna have to make sure this defense is ready to play their positions honest, and that's gonna be a big part of. Let me ask you this: the first 4 games, 4-0. I mean,
No,
can we see it?
I
We'd be
think we
happy
go.
with
I think we go 3-1.
3-1. I won't ask you to give me which game you think, but I think the same. I think that it could be, um, well, the Packers come in here in week 3, but that's our home opener. That Dallas game that opening night, I hope we get off to a good start. But man, you give Dallas all off season to get ready, and again, now it's like I said, it's at their house this time, and then of course the Chiefs there in week 4. I don't know what they're going to do, but Andy Reid always seems to put it together. So I would be very, very. I think all Bucs fans would be ecstatic with 4-0, but I think 3-1 would be a phenomenal start.
I think 2-2 is borderline acceptable because you know how hard the season is to begin, and you've basically burnt off 2 away games, so that's 2 road games are already done. Is it 3? 3.
Well, 3, right? Oh, is it 3? Because we're at
Saints,
Dallas,
Saints
we're at
away as
New
well.
Orleans. We at Dallas, at New Orleans, then home against the Packers, then home against the Chiefs. No, is
Okay.
it 3? I think maybe you're right, but you know what? It's just because I'm getting late. But if you don't mind, Coach, I'm going to share this with you. You're much of a baseball fan at all?
I've never watched a full game of baseball in my life.
Well, you're going to get your butt here to Tampa Bay and go to a Rays game with me because the
I'm
Rays are
coming
on.
to, I'm officially coming to Tampa Bay in 2024.
Then we'll have to do a Rays game if you come during the season. Hopefully the Rays are still here. Hopefully they're still here. But I just want to go ahead and say that if you don't mind, that they won 2-1 over the Miami Marlins tonight in 10 innings.
Divisional rival, in-state rival.
Yeah, I mean, I loved going down to Miami. I used to have a friend that played for Kurt Abbott. Shout out to Kurt. Played high school football with him and went to high school. He was a good kid, and he won the championship there in '97. He played. He used to go down and watch a few of his games a year, but in-state rivalry. But yeah, the Rays won tonight, so they're continuing to put themselves in contention for a wild card position. So it's been a good couple of years here in Tampa Bay because between the Lightning winning Stanley Cups and then the Bucks and then the Rays and even the Rowdies, and again, you've already mentioned your affinity for soccer, so. Even the Rowdies.
I just don't have the time. I think that's the biggest thing. I'm quite a hands-on father, and I've got football coaching as well.
Yes, sir.
And then doing these shows as well, and then I work nights. I just don't have the time to invest into watching multiple sports. I just can't do it.
I got you.
Baseball has a lot of games to watch.
It's a lot of games. Did you get all these comments already, Coach?
Yeah, I've gone through a couple of them.
What did Ben say here? By the way, watch Untold Tim Donaghy on Netflix. That's right. That's the one, the NBA, the referee that was betting on games. And it's a subject, but while we're on talking about employee that gamble on the sport they work for, that just came up about the Netflix documentary. I saw that, Ben Cornett. Yeah, interesting stuff, my friend. But Coach, I didn't mean to, I hope I didn't talk too much over you tonight. You know how excited I get because we're getting close to the season. I know we're going to do this again.
I'm excited for the season. So I've got a question for you, Ray. You're coming up for this game. Are you a little bit superstitious? Are you a superstitious person? Do you have any traditions?
Yeah, I do.
Go on, run me through your game day tradition, and we'll call it a night.
I'm naked for the game. No, I'm kidding. I have, which is kind of weird because the families. I'm wondering why my kids won't watch a game with me. I don't know. I have. Watch, they're gonna call Department of Children and Family, but I have a couple Buccaneer dolls over here. I used to have the little helmet. I got the Bucks helmet. I still put up there, signed by Mike Allstott, Coach Mike Allstott
Cool.
or A Train. Um, I get all my stuff set up. It can be in a specific order. I just need to have it in the room where I can see it. So it usually goes on the bookshelf with me. I stand a lot. I don't sit down. I'm sure I can't imagine you sit down too much either, coach, because you're a coach.
I'm a sit down. I don't watch. One thing I don't do is I don't watch the Buccaneers games as a coach. I just
Ooh,
want to
so you
enjoy it as
just
a fan. I just
that's
watch it.
fantastic. It's so hard. I'm always analyzing it.
There's, there's
Um,
stuff. There's stuff I look at. Like my eyes are always drawn to cornerbacks. So if I see some stuff that I see, that's usually when I might write something down. So I
right.
have a pen and paper there, but I try to just sit with some booze,
Huh.
have a nice soft pretzel, and then just relax. Game day jersey on, Buccaneers glass, and then my final part of my tradition is I always have a rum and ginger ale, which is called a dark and stormy, which I just think is perfect
Yes.
for fourth quarter. And just I'll have that, and then that's me. I'm not a very emotional person. I am quite loud though, and I have to. My wife always has to tell me to dial it in. I am that bad when it comes to defensive play that when they do the boat, I jump off the sofa onto the floor doing the boat, and I'm like, let's go.
You said you were a game day jersey. Who's the jersey?
It depends. So I will start the season with a jersey I just fancy wearing, and
Right.
then from there, if we lose a game, I will only change a jersey if we lose. So to just kind of that one's done. Next jersey, that's it.
So
I got a little collection.
you're very
I think it'll be
superstitious.
Mike Evans to start this year.
Yeah, my superstition as far as alcohol goes is I just start hammering IPAs in the first quarter and I stop when I pass out. I'm kidding. Brother, I tell you what, we got to do this again. I really appreciate you having me on tonight, coach.
Anytime, man. Much appreciate you coming on. It's always nerve wracking if you're thinking you have to do something on your own, but and then
Oh
I'm
no.
still learning a lot of stuff. So
Yeah, no, I had a good time tonight and we'll have to get Norman, Mr. Ronald, was it Ronald Norman?
Rodney Norman.
Rodney Norman back in here because that cat, I have a feeling that we just started. Did you catch him when he started actually talking about? I mean, I didn't think the guy was an idiot. I thought he was smart, but
No,
he knew his football. That was
yeah,
surprising.
I was trying to get it out of him.
Yeah, I
He
was
was
trying to.
very
Well,
he was very somber, very quiet, and
and
once
boom.
we asked him a couple of questions, he really got going.
Yeah, and I mean, I was trying to pull jokes out of him, and the guy was probably thinking, no, I'm not going to work for free. I'm not going to, I'm not going to work for free here. But it turns out he just really knows his football. So I'd like to talk with that cat again sometime soon.
Absolutely, we should get him on before we play against New Orleans.
Now you're out of here. Hey, coach, have a good evening. I'll talk to you.
No, but the thing I want to do is I'm going to try and do a Saturday show coming up, and I want to try and bring on a guest from every team just to talk about their
Yes.
team and just kind of a bit of banter, a bit of vibe off each other, and who do you like from your team, who do I like from your team, and just that kind of thing. They'll have their game to result. They're going to be their fan. They got to be their fan. That's part of who they are. But I just like that kind of bouncing off where they see
Yeah, the
themselves.
interaction.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
we all live in our own little goldfish bowl of
Mm.
our football, and it's always interesting to see what everyone else is like. We had a gentleman on who talked about the Saints. I think he covered the Saints, and he got very upset with me calling
I
James
saw that
Winston.
show.
He got very upset with me calling James Winston the game manager. And I meant it in no disrespect. I really tried
No.
my best to try and say that, like, I think it's a good thing because he needs some reins on him.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Buccaneers been trying to do for 5 years, was to
Yeah.
just get him not to do the crazy shit. You cut
Yes.
that, he's a good quarterback.
Yeah,
And
and
most of
that's what Sean Payton wanted. I hate to use it, but he wants a phenomenal. But that's why Drew Brees was so phenomenal for as long as he was, because he had a great arm, but he was a great reader of the defense, but he was a phenomenal game manager. And then the Saints bury the
not a
lead.
bad thing. It
It's
really
not a
isn't. It
bad
means
thing.
you're smart.
Tom Brady's a game manager. I'm
Of
not
course he
saying
is.
he's a great quarterback, but he knows the game, except for when it's fourth down in Chicago. But we'll go there another time. Hey, coach, we'll talk to
Okay,
you
man.
soon. You take care.
And you, man. Well, guys, that's all we got time for. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be talking a bit more about the depth chart. We'll be talking about the cuts. We'll be talking about the things that the Buccaneers have got coming up. The roster's still yet to be set. I just want to put a big shout out and a bit of a in memoriam for Steve White, number 94, who joined the Buccaneers as a sixth-round draft pick, 194 overall in 1996, who was with us from 96 to 2001. Biggest highlight for him was the fact that he got a 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 7 tackles in a NFC divisional game in 1999 against the then Washington Red. We won't go there, the Commanders. But I want to take a moment to think about him in memoriam of him. Just quick moment of silence for him and his family. Our thoughts are with you and anyone who suffers with leukemia. It's a hard battle for anyone. I've lost family members to cancer, and I'm sure everyone who's watched this show or has even will glance on this show has lost somebody to the big, horrible C. So my thoughts are with him and his family. He did content stuff and he did reporting for us. So he did reporting for Buccaneer stuff. So he was a Buccaneer through and Buccaneer for me through and through. He was from the College of Tennessee, and he was with them between 92 to 95 before being picked up by our Buccaneers. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Steve White. Much appreciated, sir. And good night to you all. Have a good weekend, and hopefully I will see you soon. That's bye for now.